All right, so we have the following exhibits this evening. Exhibit A1 will be the preliminary and final site plan. Exhibit A2 will be the architectural plans. Exhibit A3 will be the boundary and topographic survey. Exhibit A4 will be the traffic impact study. Exhibit A5 will be the stormwater management report. Exhibit A6 will be the photo rendering packet. Exhibit A7 is the colorized site plan, which is also known as Exhibit A. Exhibit A8 will be the unoccupied space exhibit. That'll be Exhibit B. Exhibit A9 is the site triangle exhibit. And Exhibit A10 is the turning template exhibit. And then we have, as far as board exhibits, Exhibit B1 will be the T&M review letter of July 3rd, 2024. And Exhibit B2 will be the Red Bank development checklist.
All yours.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Ed McKenna, and I'm here on behalf of the applicant American Opportunity Zone Fund LLC. As you all know, this is an application for 20 two-bedroom units and a 4-story structure located at the corner of Oakland and Bridge Avenue. The application includes also a 1,295 square foot coffee shop, 1,000 square feet of commercial space, with commercial and retail space. And then the second, third, and fourth floors are the residential units. There is no parking variance required, there's no density variance required. So what we try to do is carry it as much as possible, to make it conforming as much as possible to municipal ordinances.
So, Mr. McKenna, am I correct that there is now only one variance, which is the setback variance?
There are setback variances.
Yeah.
There's more than one?
There's more than one.
Okay, so we'll go over those as you are ready.
Yeah, we'll have that in our.
Okay.
So what I'd like to do, to open the testimony is to call on Michael Monroe. He is the architect, who has prepared the architectural plans for you. And, Michael, you have been retained by the.
Well, let me swear him in.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
That's okay. Sir, do you swear any testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, self you got? Thank you.
Mr. Monroe, you have testified before this board on many occasions. Yes, is that correct? Because if you'd like, I know you have some new board members. I don't know if you want me to go through his qualifications. If you do.
If you can do that briefly, that's fine. I am fine with Mr. Monroe testifying as an architect, as he has testified here dozens of times over the years. But for the newer members, that would be great if you could do that.
So, did you give a thumbnail sketch?
Carnegie Mellon University, architectural degree, over 34 years licensed in New York and New Jersey. I've been before several hundred boards, I've been before this board dozens and dozens of times. Past president of the Construction Board of Appeals, past president, Jersey Shore.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Monroe, you were retained by the property owner in this particular instance to design the structure that is the subject of this application. Is that correct?
Yes.
Would you go through with the board, the basic elements of the structure, as well as describing the architectural features?
Yes, when we, this project was before the zoning board of adjustment last year. We got some favorable feedback on the way the building looked, and they asked us to do a couple of things. They thought it was a little bit too much density for the property. They also wanted us, that building was a donut shape, so it was 4-sided with a courtyard in the middle. And they asked us to break up some of the mass of the building, make the back part of the building look as good as the front did, which generally just, that was generally the synopsis of the comments. So what we did is we came back, that was a rental building. This is 20 minutes with 3 affordable units in the building. And it's a lot less dense. We have plenty of parking. We have 3 levels of units above the parking level. The parking level has 40 spaces inside, 7 or 6 on the outside. It's down to 6. And as you heard, a small coffee shop and a small commercial space. The one variance was discussed was the streetscape. We were asked to keep the streetscape kind of in line with the existing buildings. And we did do that, and that creates a variance of only about 1 foot setback. But one of the features of this project, trying to put up the 3D renderings, we'll see if we can get it working. A feature of this is we're trying to respect the two-story feeling of the adjacent buildings. So we have a two-story colonnade, which is the first 8 or 10 feet, which is open to the public. It's public space. There's a coffee shop, you can sit there. It's a nice sunny spot that's covered. And then the building steps back. And we did, we're trying to bring up what we did. We have pictures. We did a 3D renderings of the building. And what that did creates a two-story look for the front and it steps back. We have a green roof over 50% of the building. Instead of a courtyard building, we scooped out the Oakland side to give less mass on that street. So it's carved out, it breaks up the overall massing of the building. We have a green roof on top. We have a green roof on the second floor on that side, which is the south sunny side of the building. We have a green roof on the second floor, or the third floor, which overlooks the train station. That's basically a synopsis of what we did for the building.
Open the Google,
Right.
that's the only thing you have.
Yeah, I'd like to open up the Google Earth first if I could.
I thought it was 2.
What we
Mr.
did,
Monroe, can you just clarify the number of affordable units? The plans show 2.
Is it 2 or 3?
3 affordables.
3 affordables?
I only see 2 on the plans. I just want to make sure we're all clear what you're providing.
I think we need to. The affordable units are on the second, these two.
That's what I thought.
Okay, thank you.
10% with 20.
Yep.
For 20 or less. The affordable co-units are on the second floor, which is the first living level. And they're right adjacent to the gym. There's also some common area in this building. The space that has the second floor roof area, our lower courtyard area, there's a common area gym right there. So those co-units are right next to that, which is nice. And there's no one actually living on that second floor. It's just the 2 floors above it in that center space. So what we did is, I can pass out one of these to the audience. I'll pass out a hard copy to you also. So these are all the pictures that are up there. If you want to, you can just pass that around. But basically, we took a 3D Google SketchUp model, we put it right in Google Earth. So what you see is exactly what's there if you open up Google Earth on your phone right now. The only funny part about that is you can't erase existing buildings. So if you look here, you might see an old building sticking out of the new building, but everything is proportional to what is there. We showed some different views. We showed a top view of how it relates to the whole train station. And part of the overall concept, we want to make it look like we had a building that fit in. There's a lot of people, there's thousands of people that go by the train station every day. And if you look in the engineering report, it shows you the picture on page 3 of what everyone sees every day of that street. Looks semi-abandoned. And I thought it'd be nice, we have a couple big buildings, and towards the end, we have one that shows all 3. We have the Anderson building on the corner where Sickles was, that was vacant for 30 years, finally got someone in there, that building's fixed up, and a 4th floor head to the back of that. We have the rail, this picture here, right here, go to the next one too.
And by the way, these photos that are being shown are exhibit A6.
So our building is, I'm pointing right to the center here. The train station is right here. This is a building coming in, 2-story to 2-story. This is the rail as it exists now. And then Anderson building's over here. The rest of the buildings that exist on Bridge, you can see are 2-story buildings. They're probably going to change someday, but I think it's nice to respond to the human scale and not have a 4-story facade kind of like we have at the rail. I think that breaking up 2 and 2 is nice. So the building was designed to look a little bit like a Red Bank building. We have a lot of red brick in it. You see a lot of historic Red Bank buildings. We want to put a nice nice impression, people drive, come by the street every day and see that building. We think it fits in overall, we took the massing down on the corners of the building, we took it down the front, we took it down on the side street for Oakland. So, let's go through those again. That basically just gives you, an idea of how we got to that spot, how we made it smaller, how it fitted more. And that's a top view looking down, shows you the size of the rail, the size of our building and the Anderson building, the two buildings next to it. Bridge, Oakland, rail, train station, Anderson building, two-story buildings existing. So that gives you a sense of how it fits in. We think it's appropriate massing and size. It meets all the zoning requirements, basically. We're not asking for too many units, or we have plenty of parking. We're within the heights, we're within all the requirements in the zone. And it's in the zone for this reason. They want to encourage density, and it's right by the train station. And we meet all the requirements in the zone. Couple minor setback variances like we discussed. Otherwise, we're fully compliant, except for some waivers. Want to go to pictures next to me?
It never got sent to us. It didn't go through to the city. I know, I sent it to the email for this one.
Right. So we also generated, I don't know, we'll try to get our floor plans up there. We also generated, we submitted 42 pictures of, in addition to creating the model, is that the thing?
Sent it from here to this.
So I have pictures that we can pass out, but basically we have I'll hold up pictures and I'll pass them around. This is actually a 3D model that was inserted in the Google Earth, but we actually had to draw the buildings around it because you can't get down low in Google Earth. But this gives you a real life view of all the approaches around the building. There is some sensitivity about shadows being cast in other places, but no shadows get cast from the south, not the north. So there's only some minor shadows on the parking lots, the north side. And it's also on some of these pictures, and hopefully we'll get them up before this is over. Different images of the different rooftop gardens, all the planting material is shown.
And that's in the exhibit that you sent to the board. We have that in our packet.
Yes, you have that.
Okay.
We made four copies of pictures. I don't remember where they went, but
I don't think we have what he's holding up there, Mr. Chairman. I could be wrong, but I don't.
I don't think we have that one with the front rendering. In our packet, we have in section 11, looks like about a dozen photos. Oh, that one I think is in there. I think it's image 38.
Okay.
With a variety of views of the back of the property, some common areas, as well as the colonnade in the front with people sitting at tables, I assume in front of the coffee shop.
Okay, so that's all part of Exhibit A6 then. I apologize. Go ahead.
I can put a packet up. I can pass some of these around. Those are all the views. I'll put a packet up. These views, you can, while we're testifying, you can take a look at all these.
Yeah, I have it on already.
So those really show the actual feeling of the courtyard with the landscaping. We had some control down there. We showed activity. We showed the fountains and fire pits on the roofs and things like that. There's a lot of landscaping. But there's several things. There's no pickleball courts or anything like that. It's a lower intensity use. There's a lot of vegetation, a lot of private spaces up there. It's not meant to be like a center activity hub. There's no swimming pool up there, no crazy amounts of activity. It's all meant to be quietly used.
But Michael, you do have a great amount of green space, correct?
Yeah, we're required to have any building over 5,000 square feet is required to have 25%
variation.
50%. That's excluding grass areas. It's required. So we have all them all on the computer here. I just don't know if we can get them up on this.
Yeah, I don't want, I sent the email, it's barely can go through it. I don't know if I plug in the HDMI cord that will do the Zoom people in trouble.
We don't anticipate the Zoom.
Which email is there?
I pass those pictures.
You can try to forward it.
What email did you send them to?
Send it to the right one.
Red Bank Council.
It should be
No, but he forwarded to me.
councilroom@redbanknj.org.
Do we need them to put up on the monitor?
No.
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 We have them in our packet and you've
Several.
provided a set to the company, so that's, to the public, that's fine.
My cable or not?
Don't worry about it.
No, don't worry about it, just keep going.
So, some of the other things we're looking to respond to, like I said, there's everything screened off. There's a 4-foot parapet around this whole building up top. The mechanical units are screened. No one's gonna see any of that. There's no mechanical equipment down low. The parking's all screened, the landscape around the building. We did an initial resubmission. I'm gonna let Jackie have an engineering point of view. We got another letter back from T&M. We started coordinating all the plans for things like the parking layout. We responded to some issues about moving some barrier-free spaces around. We have a barrier-free outside, barrier-free inside. The way the building's gonna function, ideally, it was suggested it'd be nice to be able to have a turnaround inside the building, so you don't have a dead end, but there's 2 doors on this apartment. It's private parking just for people in the building and for employees of the spaces, so, and there used to be 7 spaces out front, now there's 6 because there's a handicap space now. If we lost one, which is fine, we have more than enough. But no one's gonna drive in this building that doesn't have an access code and know exactly where it's going, so no one's gonna go in there looking for a space. For me to make them drive around, I'm gonna lose 4 or 5 spaces, I think it's better to have the spaces in the building. Like I said, we have plenty of spaces, way more than we need under the building for the tenants, so we like to keep it that way. We're maintaining,
So, Mr. Monroe, guests are not going to have access to park underneath the building.
that's correct.
All right, so it's just tenants and employees and that's it. Okay.
And then, so some other thoughts were, there's 2 buildings that we're taking down. There's some concern that we're losing affordable housing. But we're gonna have 2 units that are gonna be, for sale. That'll be affordable, which actually, generates some generational wealth for those 2 people instead of paying market rate. There's all market rate apartments around here. So, I think it's a good thing to have those 2 units in the building. They're gonna be very nice. And, like I said, it's gonna be available to purchase. Those are 30 homeowners. And I think that's about it for the big picture of the building. Wish I could put the other pictures up. We have it in a slideshow here, which is in a movie format. But we try to be sensitive to Oakland. There's a lot of discussion because we have no one living on Bridge, really, right? It's a train station. On Oakland, there's neighbors across there, but we have pushed back the majority of the building further away than the existing buildings. And there's some concern about the lower courtyard looking towards Oakland, but we're gonna screen that courtyard because we want privacy there also. It's a nice south facing courtyard right over the parking garage.
Are these gonna be, I don't know if you're the right witness for this, are these rentals or are they gonna be owned?
These are for sale.
They're for sale.
It's gonna be rental, but these are gonna be for sale.
And if so, is it gonna be a condominium?
Yes.
Are the spaces gonna be assigned or are the parking spaces assigned or are they first come, first served?
So,
They're assigned spaces.
and every unit will have an assigned space. And then, depending on how the homeowners association wants to structure it, have 10 additional spaces for unit owners that have 2 vehicles if they want to, and they want to pay whatever the homeowner association designates would be appropriate to get a second spot. They'll be able to do that. So we have 30 spots available for the residents, and we still have 16 spots available for the employees of the
Coffee shop and commercial.
coffee shop and commercial space. So I think that as indicated, we have a surplus of parking. Not, you don't see very often, Red Bank. Michael, do you want to address the refuse? Or do you want? Okay.
There are some questions about whether the refuse area was big enough for recycling. It is. I don't know if we have to do it with the engineering yet, but It is adequate for recycling and for general trash pickup. It's gonna be 2 4-yard dumpsters, most likely it's recycling bins. There will be a trash chute, not currently in the plan right now, but the last building had one. There will be a trash chute going down. We'll go to a small trash compactor. Someone will maintain the trash because someone's got to do all the association management, look after the parking, the roofs, the landscaping, so there'll be someone in charge of that. And that person will deal with that every day, get it to the dumpsters and private hauling pick up every day if needed. If it's not, it'll be every other day. So we did check with the private hauler. We verified that the smaller units can be rolled out, and they were happy with it. So we have no issue with that.
Right, so the trash will be private pickup, and that's gonna be in the Master Dune bylaws that it's private pickup.
Correct.
That's correct.
Okay,
And yeah, trash and recycle.
Does anyone from the board have any questions for Mr. Monroe or the testimony so far?
I have one question. Shoot.
Just on the screening devices, right, you've got an elevated building over the parking. I feel a little concerned about the durability of the screening devices of the fence and the arbor and the, ubiquitous arborvitae. Would there be another strategy architecturally to address that? Be something I'd ask you to consider.
Yeah, we can shoot for something better than arborvitae. We can mix up the landscaping, stagger it with some hollies and things like that, which makes for a better. Some of our parking goes beyond the base of the building. Because I'm mostly going up against other parking lots, so I can't drop the screen down right on top of it. So for the most part, you would normally do that. You could put something straight down. We're gonna put a 6-foot fence, and then we're gonna landscape. We showed the height of the landscaping. I think it'll be adequate. The idea is to have that landscaping grow up. But I think you're right. It doesn't want to just be a single row. I think it's got to be carefully done. And it's got to be staggered. It's got to be some different species. So there were some comments about that. And I know they'll be dealt with to be resubmitted to the approval of the board engineer. But our intention is to do a better job with that. We showed some schematic landscaping just as an example of what we would want, and we're putting our heads together with the landscape architect, and we'll make sure that screening is stable and it's not just going to be a single row of trees blown over in a snowstorm or something.
Yeah, I was driving more towards dropping the physical screen down, but you're saying you can't do that.
I can drop it down a little bit. We have it's just I can drop it down a little bit for sure. And that'll help. You can do that. Take it down to 8 feet above.
Sharon,
Go ahead.
I just have two things. With the parking, I know it's exciting to have a surplus. Is there any chance to reduce that parking since we're across the street from train station?
It's
I
not.
think it was Environmental Commission that added that to their comment. I think it was.
Just because there are a lot of parking lots that are underutilized in that area. If there's any kind of shared parking agreement that you could look into.
We'll look into it. I agree with you that the future of parking is going to be less, next 20 years, I think we're going to use a lot less parking and maybe some shared vehicles and things like that, and shared parking spaces. I think, most of the people using, no one's going to drive here to get coffee. For the most part, there's a coffee shop on every corner, but I think a lot of those the uses on the ground floor we meant for walk-up convenience. I think they'll be well used. People that live nearby, there's a lot of people that live nearby want to come and have a cup of coffee and sit in the sun in the morning. So I'm not as worried about extra traffic coming from there. If it's deemed that we have, that's something that boards want, we can eliminate some of those spaces on the outside and put that back to green space, or take out one of the spaces and put a tree there or something.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, because unless it's changed, but I don't think there was any bicycle parking.
We'll stipulate, we'll add a bicycle rack. That's not a problem. We'll stipulate to that.
Okay, and are there EV charging stations or?
Yeah.
Okay, there are.
We have 8 EV charging stations,
Okay.
as long as there's electric cars.
Yeah.
And then, but also, there's also storage inside the building, for people's bikes and things like that, or other things they want to take. So the bike storage will be indoors. We'll put one for guests, people that want to drive their bike up and have a cup of coffee. But it is ample tent storage to keep multiple bikes inside the building on that ground floor, they come right out and get right out. So, we'll have both. We'll stipulate, we'll add the outdoor place.
Does anyone from the public have any questions so far? You're welcome to come up. Just steal that microphone from Mr. McKenna, please.
I'm just gonna swear you in, sir. You swear your testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the true self you got?
I do.
And just state your name for the record.
Anthony Sotero,
You spell your last name for the record
Setaro,
and your address.
135-137 Oakland Street.
Thank you. Go ahead.
But that's not for me.
First off, I want to applaud you guys really on the work that you did. You really definitely took into consideration. I don't want to beat you guys up too hard. Michael, you did a really phenomenal job with the design. So I really do want to thank you guys for listening to that. I just want to confirm a few things with you, because obviously for us, my family's owned the house across the street for 90 years. So this changes the view considerably, where we've been looking at the oldest oak tree on Oakland Street and 2 Victorian houses. That's been the view for 100+ years. So I just want to make sure what we're staring at next. And I haven't seen a rendering of what that view would look like.
There's several in that packet being passed around. There's a couple of views from Oakland showing, look through the doors up to that, where the building scoops out. I'll find the picture and hand it to you. So
Yeah, that's just I have a bunch of them and I just couldn't find that one.
I'll find that one for you.
I have one in the
I
pack.
just want to make sure, like, the parking, I know the parking entrance is on that side.
Make sure we got that back.
And I just want to promise that we're not gonna have rent call us 732 blah, 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 like it does at the rail over that door, so that's our view. I know we're gonna have clearance 8 feet 10. I just want to make sure we're not staring at a phone number, you know, and a rent me sign, because that's other parking garages do have that, you know? I do want to talk a little bit about that courtyard second floor. I do thank you, whoever was mentioning about the concerns on that. That's the second, third floors, and thank you for removing the balconies, because that was a concern of ours. A lot of the bedrooms. Okay, yeah. A lot of the bedrooms, thank you. A lot of the bedrooms on Oakland Street are at that level. So you're actually, that courtyard's on the back side. That's more like where Mila Pizza's is now.
Yeah, we're kind of stuck behind there's 2 existing buildings. That courtyard is kind of stuck behind there a little bit too. So we want to screen that for their sake and also for our sake. And there's a pretty narrow corridor left in that courtyard, which you're looking at. So
Are there windows on that building back there? Like on that side? I mean, we're way across the street.
This isn't our building, but the building back here, there's windows that look towards the
But
courtyard.
I mean, for these, I know it's not your building, but there are windows on the backside of that building?
I don't know. I've never actually walked behind that building.
So you're talking about the courtyard on the second floor, which is facing the west and south elevations, right, Michael?
Yes.
Yeah.
The question was, does one of those existing buildings have windows that face our property? And we're set back 8 feet. You know, we have a building setback, conforming 8-foot setback, and then this is also better for those buildings because it scoops out a lot of that potential. So even if there's a bed, I'm sure there's a few bedroom windows there on that side. And our intention is to, we have the 8-foot for light openness and air, and we're gonna screen it so that they have privacy and we have privacy.
Okay. How many parking spots are being removed, street parking?
There was 7, we lost 1, a TNM review letter to bring a barrier free, which is required, if it's restricted parking, I need a barrier free ban, so there's 6 spaces. And if the board thinks that that's too many, or someone wants to take 1 or 2 away and make it trees, that's fine with us too. But
I think he's asking about the on-street.
The on-street
Spaces,
parking
not
that
the
are
ones on
currently-
your-
Yeah, the on-street that are currently on Oakland in front of the houses, how many of those do we? For the public?
Well, we gained space back from where the houses were that were taken down, so the net, I don't know, the net loss, maybe our engineer can look at that, give you we pick up some and we lose some, which is only a 24-foot wide opening, which would be a space and a half. So, it's probably only a loss of one space. As mentioned, we do have a traffic expert talking about all the parking in the area, there'll be a lot of testimony about that. That this is actually a pretty low intensity use.
Well, we'd like them to be able to let us know that number when they come up.
I think it's one, we'll check.
Okay, good.
Yeah, it's, you know, there are days where you drive to the house and you can't find parking on that street. There's very little parking. So, I mean, one space, you know, here or there can make a difference. The other question I do have, I know, and again, applaud you guys for conforming to zoning and all that. I just want to confirm, is it conforming to the transit overlay zone that we're currently in, or is it conform to the whatever BR? I don't know. which one we're in.
It's in the BR1 zone.
BR1, right?
It's a BR1 and we are in a transit overlay.
Right.
So, I think the discussion about Transit Village came up on social media or something, there was discussion of it.
So, yeah, that's kind of what I want to clarify, because I do recall that when we were at zoning board last year. And Transit Village started, I asked the question that if we get the Transit Village status, and because our property is currently in Transit Overlay Zone. What happens to Transit Overlay Zone? And I was told that we wouldn't really have both. And so that if they got the Transit Village, then Transit Overlay would go poof, goodbye. And so I just want to make sure, like, we're not putting the cart before the horse, that we do this and we approve Transit Village when this isn't there. And then we start this project in Transit Overlay, and then we do Transit Village, and then, you know, it gets very confusing. So I just want clarity on.
Yeah, I think that's something, a lot of areas a lot of towns are seeking that. They can't come in and change your zoning, I don't think, so.
Do you want me to clarify?
Sure.
Okay.
I would love it.
Sure, no, so, Transit Village, if you're designated as a transit village, you do have to undo the zoning around the transit area, the half mile. So right now you have a transit overlay that is not allowed in the Transit Village program. So it would have to be a TOD zone, so you go back to the zoning and change the code for this area.
So what happens for them if they get through this approval and it changes maybe
It wouldn't.
mid-construction for them?
It wouldn't, because what they're building is a mixed use development that's promoting walking, pedestrian connections to transit, retail. So it's in line with Transit Village, is what I'm trying to say.
Gotcha.
The Transit Village, I think the Transit Village gives you a couple extra things, that one is to be more density.
Even if they're not in that zone, if they're not in that transit
So
village?
they would be in the zone because they're within the half mile of the Red Bank train station.
I guess I'm confused because it's not one of the properties that was outlined. Like when they outlined, these are the properties.
Yeah, I think you're confusing Transit Village and the redevelopment
Yes.
area.
Right,
So we are doing one before the latter, before the former is that we're applying for Transit Village. They're just two separate things.
gotcha.
And in any event, isn't it the case that should this project be approved under the existing zoning, that would be the zoning they would be constructing under?
Yes,
If the zoning were to change and they wanted to take advantage of that zoning, they would have to make a reapplication.
That's correct.
that's correct.
Gotcha.
But once they have their approval from any board and they start construction, they're locked in and good to go. Changing the zone isn't gonna undo anything for them.
Right. I want to make sure I'm not looking at an empty lot for 10 years as well. You know?
Yeah, that wouldn't be good.
I think that.
Can I ask a quick
Yeah.
question?
Sure.
At the last council, no, 2 council meetings ago, they were talking about the fact that we don't really fit into the transit overlay. We don't really have a transit overlay. Did I screw that up someplace in my mind?
It was that we don't currently have a
We
transit
don't,
village.
we don't have that. But we don't have, also don't have an overlay zone either.
We do have an
We do?
overlay.
Definitely have an over.
Okay, because I thought they said that we did not, because that something had changed and that we had lost it. We didn't reapply or something.
That's the transit village.
Okay, we haven't applied.
Or we don't.
Anything else, Anthony?
The only other question, is in regards to exterior garbage cans around the building. There's currently a little bit of an issue on Bridge Avenue, and even on Chestnut, that there's no garbage cans around the rail, like the rail didn't put any extra ones out. There's no additional public ones, maybe that's a public.
All of our trash is enclosed, so. we'll leave it at
But in that public colonnade in the front, do you plan, or could the condominium association put out a trash can at the sidewalk?
that. Stipulate, yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, yeah, because residents coming in and out, they generate trash, and not that they're the ones that throw it, but I mean, trash.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay,
That might have normally what happens is we would deal with public works.
right.
So we would.
Yeah, and that's what I think is probably what needs to be done, is that needs to be a conversation that's had.
Terrence of Public Works is very helpful. So we would sit down with him and say, what is it you want? For example, fire department wants a fire hydrant. We get it, we've already agreed to do it. If the Public Works comes to us and says, we'd like 2 trash cans on Bridge, we're going in. But we sit down with them and go through that process. So that's probably what's gonna determine.
Okay, the one last question, in regards to the utilities, because they did recently in the last couple of years have upgraded the utilities in that area. Does the street need to be ripped up considerably to do all this, or how's that?
That's in the engineer review letter. If it's damaged, it gets replaced. So
It's our
it's already
responsibility.
stipulated.
Okay. Alright, that's it.
Thank you.
you.
Anyone from the public have any questions for the applicant so far? Okay, Mr. McKenna, you can grab your mic back and keep going.
Okay. If there are no further questions of Mr. Monroe, I'd like to call up Jacqueline Fleur, who's our engineer.
Thank you.
Can we swear in first or pass these out?
I'll swear you in first. Do you swear your testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? And just state your name, spelling your last name for the record.
Jacqueline Floor, F-L-O-R.
And you are a licensed engineer, state of New Jersey, correct?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. I don't need anything further, Mr. Chair.
Unless, Mr. Chairman, do you want, any?
Some qualifications would be nice.
Okay, sure.
So
I don't recall that you've ever testified before this board, have you?
I have
For the planning board or the zoning board?
a while, but I believe, and I also previously probably sat there for the planning board prior.
He actually was the planning board's engineer at one point.
Here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was more than 30 years ago.
No.
No, no.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, okay, so my memory's not that good. Okay, well then give us a quick rundown of qualifications and we'll keep going.
So, I graduated from Florida Tech in 1999. I became a licensed professional engineer in New Jersey in 2004. I have been practicing engineering for 25 years. I'm the president and CEO of Engineering Infrastructure, a Red Bank business here over at the Galleria. I'm licensed in 5 states for engineering. I've testified before this board and multiple boards. I'm also licensed in New Jersey.
We're happy to accept you as an expert. If you worked for cause, that's good enough for me.
Yes, please, if you would. Thank you very much.
It's okay, Mr. Chairman. I brought 11x17s.
Love it. The more paper, the better.
He wants to kill all the
Lucky
trees.
for me, Jeff informed me that it may or may not be one.
Oh, sir.
Take one and pass around. Any left, I'm gonna give to the audience.
Great.
So there could be all four. Yeah. Whatever's left, I'm gonna give to the audience. So that will.
All the same thing.
I think that's like.
I'm not sure if other people. Yeah, it really is. I'll know, Mr. Chairman, all these exhibits are already marked in.
Okay.
It's something different.
This one's just. I don't need.
I get confused.
If you just open like a pile.
Should be.
So much.
My fault.
Yeah.
Feel like a root locker in here.
Sorry about that. I just wanted to make sure everybody had a copy.
But as well, you were complaining about the property on the bigger is to the sign plan that is set for the board, correct?
Mr. McKenna, would you please use the microphone?
Yeah, you have to speak.
I can't hear.
Hold the mic close, Ed.
Sorry. Can you take the board through the preliminary review of every site?
So you already saw the building that the architect got. So basically, we're at the corner of Bridge and Oakland. As you will see, from the architect's renderings, there's access from Oakland. A garage there. I'm gonna talk through some of the comments in the letter, so we can talk through how many spaces are on rent. I know there was some testimony on that. I wanna go point by point through the letter so that we can address that. But on Oakland, it's pretty much the garage access as well as the loading zone. So I'm gonna speak purely of the engineering. You've already seen what the building is. Then if you go to Bridge Avenue, it's, even though the setback from the property line is a foot, which is really close to the existing non-conformity, the architect has backed off where the actual doors to the commercial uses start. So that's why if you look at our plans and whenever I go to the exhibits, you're gonna be able to see that open area in the front, which is really a wide open plaza. Even though the building comes out, within a foot of the property. So that's what's happening along Bridge Avenue. In terms of the building, most of the engineering is not really that exciting, it's hard. On this site, because the building covered the majority of the site, really our job was to fit parking under the building, and I know that we're gonna talk about the number of parking spaces. You know, when we looked at the building and we looked at the transit overlay zone, we understood how many parking spaces were required by that, which was the 1.4, I believe. But when we thought about it as in the reality, how many people may park there, what we did was we tried to maximize as many spaces as we could fit underneath, so that property management could figure out if a unit needed one space, or maybe certain spaces would get, you know, certain locations would get up to 2 spaces. So we'll talk through all of that and how we laid out the parking underneath the building. So really from overview, really the site is mostly about pedestrian layout, vehicular layout, and I did hear comments about bikes, which we currently had some more facilities for bikes as well. I was gonna go through point by point the letter, because when it comes to the engineering, it's really gonna be a discussion on parking, drainage, lighting, those type of things. So I was gonna go point by point, if that's okay with you.
You're welcome to go point by point if you want to, or if you're willing to comply with the engineer's letter, and I know someone sent back a response to all of that. As long as that is all good with our engineer, we're fine. If there's anything that's not, or that you want to discuss, or that you were asked to discuss, we're happy to hear that, but you don't have to go point by point.
Let me go through some of the comments that I feel require a little bit of testimony,
Okay.
so that we can decide.
Perfect.
So I'm gonna skip then past section 1, which is planning and zoning, because of the fact that you're gonna hear from the planner. She'll be the last to testify, so we'll let her.
Jackie, do you know, just to clarify an earlier question, the number of variances? It's one variance, right?
Variance.
It is one variance, the rest are waivers.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page on that.
If you go to sheet 3, or if you look at any of the exhibits, you can see, that really we're talking about the setback from the public right of way. Right now, it's 5 feet, which is, the requirement. The existing is only 0.22 feet on Bridge Avenue and 19.7 feet on Oak. We're proposing 1 foot on Bridge Avenue, 23.3 feet on Oak. So we require a variance on Bridge Avenue. It's an existing nonconformity. We're not really making it that much better. It was 0.22, we're making it a foot. But the way that you're gonna hear from planner, the way that we are addressing that really is, even though the building comes to there on the upper floors, that bottom floor, you're really gonna have all the lots. So section 1 is really the planning and zoning. So we're gonna have the planner testify to that. And same thing, 1.2 with signs, signage would really be the architect, and he proposes to have it form. The unoccupied open space, we provided an exhibit for that, that's exhibit B. So just for the benefit of the public, I'm gonna switch the page, and put one up there, even though they all have a copy. All copies, but if you go to exhibit B,
Which is also A8.
it's also A.
Eight.
A8, and we show that calculation on unoccupied open space. Give me 1 minute to switch the board, and then let me walk through it. By an exhibit mainly to show that we are over the unoccupied open space requirement, that was 15%. That's made up of the landscape areas, plus we're including that offset area underneath with the definition. Based on the definition, and I think, they put the definition in the letter, but if you read the definition in the ordinance, that area qualifies as multifamily requirements, those are all design waivers, and the architects already testified to the side. Section 3 gets into off-site improvements, which I think you mentioned, we don't need to go point by point through it. We agree to all of it. The one thing, parking meter locations will work with the parking facility, where those should be located, on Bridge. I know the question came up about parking, so I just wanted to talk about that for a second. We are increasing, I believe, the number of parking spaces along Bridge, but on Oakland, we'll be losing 3 spaces. Would it? There's already 2 driveways within that vicinity, right on Oakland, where we're putting the opening to the garage as well as the loading zone. So the remaining space leaves about room for about 3 parking spaces, so we will be losing those 3 parking spaces that are on our street. But it's also possible that those spaces right now are being used by one of the dwellings that are there, but I can't see that, right? And so 3 spaces will be lost on Oakland, but there is no metered parking on it. But on Bridge, yes, we'll work to relocate it.
So I'm sorry, you're losing 3 on Oakland?
By my calculation, about 20 feet, 20-foot long spaces, I'm gonna say, right?
And on our bridge, you're gaining 1, is that what you
I
said?
believe we're gaining, I can measure it to be exact, so if you give me 1 minute. Say we're gaining 1 because there's an existing driveway that we're eliminating. So that would be that driveway is actually, let's give you the exact dimension of it. Looks to be 30 feet. So a 20-foot space. Not to be conservative, I say we're increasing it by 1.
Okay.
I even be a little. Say 1. In section 4, we have a traffic engineer here, and we had extensive testimony on the number of parking spaces. So I'm not gonna go through that section unless you want me to.
That's fine. You don't have to go through it.
But 4.2, I did want to discuss.
Okay.
So 4.2 talks about ADA, the fact that there is a parking area in front of the building that's outside of that garage that we typically would need another ADA space in the front as well for public. I concur, so we will add that parking space, but when we add it, just so there's no confusion, because I didn't change it on these plans, because these are the plans you had already looked at. You will be losing 1 space from the, so right now we show 7, in order to put in an ADA client space, you'll lose 1, right? Further in this letter, we're gonna talk about, there's a comment about road length in the driveway. When we get to that, we might end up losing more than 1. But for right now, 4.2, we lost 1 space.
Okay.
Excuse me, which took us down from 47 to 46.
Which took us down,
I think you're at 46, you're going to 45?
second.
What does that mean?
No, we would be at 47 coming down to 46. We're gonna continue to come down. Give me a second, maybe the count. I have 40 under the building that you had, and I have 7 out front.
I counted the site plan, tonight it was 46, but I didn't count the architect. The architecturals weren't the same as the site plan.
From the site plan?
I counted from the site plan, it was 46 at that time.
Let me make sure. I have 40 under the building.
Yes, they will.
So regardless, it's
Right here.
the architect just advised me that they added that space on his plans. So Jackie, on the updated architectural plans, it shows 47.
Okay.
Okay.
Let me just make sure that I'm counting 40 under the building.
It's more than you need. We don't have to argue about 1 space.
4.3, we concur, we'll correct that. There's nothing else here. 4.6. 4.6 talks about safety. So initially, what we thought the letter meant
You mean the safety island inside the garage?
I think the request is actually a safety island outside of the garage before you get to the garage door. So if you are to look at exhibit A, which is exhibit A7. I believe the comment. I can confirm with Deanna and absolutely. I think they're saying that we need a safety island here.
Correct. So there's a requirement in our ordinance, to have a safety island from the curb line to 18 feet back. I don't know if you remember this from the
We did it at the rail.
cannabis application recently. They don't have safety island. They don't have safety islands. So the ordinance requires basically an island separating the sidewalk from the parking spaces. It should be 18 feet behind the parking spaces. They obviously have a 3-foot or a 2-foot safety island, I think. Was that what was shown? A 2-foot they're proposing a 2-foot safety island instead of,
Was that a design waiver?
yes.
Okay.
So basically, 4.6. If we were to put in a longer space, we would come back, the 18 feet, then I can show you up here, I can show you here, but basically, if we were to come back 18 feet, that's 2 parking stalls, right? So we would lose the front 4. And then with ADA, we'd lose another, so you'd only be left with 2 spaces out in the front. We can do that, or we can not, but that's the item I did want to discuss, what, from an engineering standpoint, we can do either. The reason we thought it was better to leave some of the parking spaces out front is because the intention was to have the spaces underneath be designated, possibly have some of them either given an extra space to one of the residential units. You could have some for guest parking. I heard a guest parking comment. It's going to be up to property management, the best way to use those extra spaces. The employees will be able to park under there, but to open that up to the public, to also have parking, there may be ways to manage that, but right now that's not what originally we were envisioning. Originally, this applicant was envisioning a garage door potentially there, or a gate, have that closed, so really the public parking would really be up in the front. So that was why we tried to maximize it, but we don't have to maximize it, because I do agree there is one here. We want to know what, if that's something you want us to just work out with the engineer, or if that's something that the board is doing.
I mean, from a legal perspective, I would recommend that you keep the downstairs, you keep the parking lot building only. And that you don't want to start letting the public in there. It's going to become a mess.
I agree with our attorney, as far as access to the parking should be restricted, whether it's garage door or gate or whatever you do. I don't know that I have a serious opinion about the safety island either way. Jackie, what do you think?
I think a waiver would be fine.
Is there any chance to make this, I know I'm very crunchy tonight, is there any chance that we can make this like open space and have the garage door just for the inside of the, like, do we need those 7 spots? It's just a bunch of asphalt. Cause like, is that what's going to be visible from the street?
It is what's going to be visible from the street. For open space, you are going to have vehicles going in and out of there, so
Oh, yeah.
really on the other side. I don't know if it's the best location for open space, but we certainly could do that. Right now, we were thinking that's the only opportunity really for public parking for this, if we were going to close off the garage.
Okay. Or could it be for like the bike? Okay.
Well, I think we could certainly build in bike parking, if that was something. There are also other locations we might be able to fit bike parking.
And as Mr. Monroe testified, the residents will have space inside for their bikes. And I think if you were coming to the commercial use or the coffee shop, you'd probably want a bike rack on the northeast corner of the building somewhere, or at least on the northern side of the building.
Right.
This seems like a long way away for a user of the space on Bridge Avenue to put their bike.
Totally agree.
That's true.
Anyone else have an opinion on that? All right, let's keep going.
Can I just, if you want to eliminate the spaces and make that the curbed island and make that green,
Yeah.
you just have the driveway and then curbed islands on each side,
Just because there's then like beautification for the neighbors.
right? The trees, and if that's how you know, that's one way, you keep the driveway,
Yeah,
and on each side you have a grass and landscaped area,
And push the door back or the gate back.
right?
and then they could do that.
The gate is already recessed though.
The gate's currently gonna be right where the building starts.
Right, the gate is already 10, 20, 40 feet back into that driveway, right?
No, right now we have the gate proposed right there. So if you look at exhibit, A, or exhibit A7, based on the red line is the building.
Right,
So currently, I believe the architect was talking about putting the door right where the door is. Now, there is opportunity to move a gate further back. We hadn't talked about doing that, because then you're introducing the public underneath the building, which I think, as your attorney just mentioned, creates other challenges. So we were trying to keep the public outside of the garage.
so would the gate be in the red part?
Correct.
Right,
That's 4 spaces back.
so you would, all of these other spaces would be green.
You pretty much lose all your public parking, unless you want us to just keep an ADA space out there, but you'd only have one.
I like the idea of removing those spaces and doing something more interesting with that. It doesn't encourage people to cross from side to side inside there. From a pedestrian standpoint, I would put picnic tables on both sides, but some beautification wouldn't be a bad idea.
So you would prefer to see, so would you prefer to have us increase the throat length to the 4 spaces plus an ADA space, which would really only leave 2 spaces out there, ADA space plus 1? Or are you thinking ADA space only, just so we know some direction?
I'm okay with the 88 plus 1. If anyone else has an opinion, speak up.
So there, just so I'm clear, because I have to write this resolution, there's only gonna be, there were 7 spaces outside, you're reducing it to 2? That's what I'm hearing?
1 and 1, ADA and 1.
Yes.
Where will those spaces be?
Are supposedly for guests or
This is outside.
visitors to whatever, however you want, or
So for visitors or guests, I think that if you eliminated those, the only option would you have for visitors or guests.
street.
For A, have to use parking surrounding the building. For B, property management with the extra 8 spaces underneath could potentially have to figure out a way to allow entry for a guest and a resident. But I can't really speak to that because there's no property manager right now, but we would have to work that out. If we left the 7, we would have more options.
with the number of units in the building. This is not an awful lot of visitor or parking anyway. So, I
And
think,
aside from
I think
first
it's
thing in the morning,
a,
they can park across the street.
yeah, right, up to,
In the
after
train
11
station.
o'clock, right?
Yeah.
After 11
Yep.
o'clock, you can park free in the train station, if there are spaces. There's so few anyway, it just seems it could go either way. I mean, it really doesn't look like a big deal one way or the other.
So, Mr. Chairman, can we just get a consensus from the board whether you actually want to keep the spaces to ensure there's enough parking spaces, or do you want to eliminate the spaces? Because I'm hearing both views.
I think eliminate the plan.
Do we still have to keep the ADA though? We have to have the one ADA, so we have to have a driveway.
You have to have 2 ADA,
Okay,
right?
Well, you have enough ADA underneath the building. I think you only need
Okay.
ADA if you're going to provide public parking. Technically, if you have a parking lot, then you have to have the ADA
Okay.
space. If you're eliminating all the public parking, then I don't think you have to technically have it.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
If you have no parking, then you don't have to have an ADA space.
okay.
I mean, is that what the board wants to do? Eliminate all public parking outside of the building?
Well, we're using the term public parking.
Really not
That's not
public
really-
Oh, it's private.
Parking.
parking.
Yes,
Yeah.
parking.
Yes, parking.
I want to,
Yeah,
I'm okay with eliminating it.
I am too.
I agree, yeah, I think if there's,
It's gonna make it look nice.
yeah, and it's neighborly to those two buildings.
So sorry, here, if you have. Back to your microphone. Oh. If you have 26 to 50 parking spaces, you need 2 ADA spaces. You have that underneath, yeah, you do have that already underneath the building, so you don't need.
right. All right, so there's only gonna be then 46 parking spaces at the end of the day, if I'm understanding the breakdown now, right?
But if you get rid of.
I'm sorry, because you've had 40 underneath, so there'll be 39, because you eliminated one of them?
I think we still have 40.
You still have 40 underneath, okay.
Now, there's a chance, we gotta play around with the 188 stall.
Oh, gotcha.
There's one stall next to the,
There's one.
one stall next to the stairs that's 12 feet wide, I don't know how that. It's not ADA compliant, the way that it's drawn. We could fit in 12 feet, an 8 and a 4, but it won't quite be 8 and 5, so I think there's a chance that we could move it around, but you're probably right, there's a chance we'll be down to 39, we gotta try to fit that extra ADA.
All right, so you're gonna have at least 39 spaces with two of which will be ADA.
And one of those will be an EV space. That's the 12-footer you're talking about, right?
Correct, one of the ADAs will be an EV.
Okay.
Make ready.
Yes.
And I read somewhere you'll have 3 you'll have 3 complete at the time of CO, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, let's keep going.
Oh, I'm sorry, so 1 make ready and there'll be 3 total?
3 total installed at the time of CO, the rest will be make ready.
There's more than 3, Mark, there's total. If you want
Correct.
total EVs,
Yeah, how many EVs?
Is it 8?
I'm sure it's in your letter, but. All right,
3 of which will be up and running. at the
3
time of
by
CO.
CO, okay, thank
The
you.
rest make ready.
So shouldn't we, explain what's gonna be in place of the, parking spaces?
I would think so.
Yeah, I guess I would like at some point for the applicant to submit a plan to the engineer of what they're gonna do with that space. If there's an approval, that would be a condition of the approval.
Green space and trees.
I think is there a sightline issue?
I do have a question on that point. If we're turning this into a green space, there is a mature tree right there. I believe, is it at that spot?
No, I think it's in the center.
Right where the driveway is.
And in terms of planting, there would be a sightline issue, no? So we'd have to keep things low.
The other site triangle easement that we passed out, is that what you said? Is that what you mean? I'm trying to remember what we marked it.
It was marked in as A9.
9. We would have to keep any tall trees outside of that site triangle. We have lower plantings.
I guess you could go taller back towards the building.
Yes.
Yeah.
The only other comment really in this section that I would like to discuss, just so that it's clear, is 4.8. We already need, so that loading zone, that the drop turning templates to show. With that loading zone right now, 13 by 27. I'd actually like to make it 12 by 27, and the reason is I concur with the engineer's comment that sidewalk should be wider. I want to make that sidewalk 5 feet wide for multiple reasons. RSIS was cited, definitely a good reason, but also just usability. It really needs to be 5 feet wide. It's going right through a door to a stairwell. I want to just make sure that it's wide enough for people to walk down. I think it's a little narrow, so that would take a foot out of that loading zone and make it 12 by 27. We provided turning templates, that's 8-10, to show you that in this site, personally, a delivery truck would probably back in, instead of turning templates that way. And a refuse would come in straight. If we ran the larger single unit is SU, so we're in an SU 40, which is like a 50 foot. Bigger than any box truck you're probably gonna see. You're probably gonna see a 30-foot truck. It's really an SU 30. It's like an Amazon vehicle or a delivery truck, FedEx, and your typical refuse vehicle. So both of those would be able to adequately fit in a 12-foot loading zone. Think about your streets. Streets don't even always have lanes that are 12 feet wide. So I do think it's adequate, but I didn't want to not bring that up because that is still not your standard. So it would be a design.
I'm okay with the wider sidewalk. Does anyone else have any comments or questions about that?
And that also addresses 4.11. See if there's anything else that would require the drainage under the building, is that something that you're okay with us working with the engineer through?
Yes.
I'm sorry, the what part of the building?
Drainage inside the building.
And everything else, I think traffic, we're gonna have the traffic engineer speak to that.
Briefly, please.
Here, we concur with everything else. Treatment works required, we provide those calculations. As for the two shade trees that we're losing, we don't have any room because the driveway is not open, so we would be proposing to pay that fee. However, between the green roof and now this new landscape area, perhaps we can find some locations.
If you can, that's great. Otherwise, we're happy to take your money.
Irrigation is proposed. Light fixtures will be reinstalled.
Jackie, can you just go back to 8.9?
Sorry, I'm trying to.
Mechanical equipment, that there are gonna be none on the ground floor?
That we were gonna defer to the architect, but you said.
Correct.
Thank you.
Everything else, we acknowledge and agree. We'll add the hydrant, we'll add the name, the fire department comments. So unless there's any other comments, but I know I went through that quickly, but German. Address.
And there were some tree recommendations from the Shade Tree Commission. You're fine with those? Okay, good. Good, thank you. Does anyone from the board have any questions for our engineer?
I have a question. I'm just focused here, because I think increasing the pedestrian circulation here is ideal. I'm looking at the southeast corner. If you could just help me describe, because I don't think it's all measured out here. It looks to me like the open walkway plaza. If you were walking through it, that ends essentially in the body of the building to the south. That then extends out in the easterly direction with its kind of gallery balcony. I know there's a very narrow column supporting that. So just, I want to understand, what is the width of the sidewalk there? I think people can walk under that balcony, but I'm not going to assume they want to, because I think it's pretty narrow, like for a stroller or what have you. So for the remaining sidewalk, that I think would kind of curve you around a tree, if I'm reading this correctly. Can you say how wide that is?
I see what you're saying, where it pitches down where we have a tree. I think we could also move that tree in order to widen it a little bit. I think without we have the tree pits, but I prefer that kind of pitches down a little bit.
Yeah, just wondering what the actual width would be if, two people can walk abreast there,
It looks like it's 4 to 5 feet, but I think it should be wider, so we'll just push that tree and make sure there's adequate width to get around that.
Anyone from the public have any questions for the engineer? Grab that microphone, please. Have a seat to your right.
And I'm just gonna swear you in. Yeah. Do you swear your testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And just state your name for the record.
is Wendy Giguere,
And just spell the last name
Giguere,
and your address, please.
211 Monmouth Street.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I just have a question. I live right on block 40. And I don't know where all this parking, surplus parking you guys are talking about is. Because now that Sickles has left, their lot is full. There's always cars in front of my house all day long. And even in the train station, that's pretty much full most of the time. I don't understand all of this surplus. Somebody could explain that to me, please?
The parking I referenced was the train station lot,
And that's on the other side of the tracks, so people have to go all the way around.
directly across Bridge Avenue, that small lot, before the tracks.
It's not empty all the time.
Might not be empty all the time. It's empty all the time I go to pick up food at Mia Lupitas, that's for sure, or at Bridge Avenue, I park on Bridge Avenue. So that's just my personal view of the situation, is that there is a fair amount of parking in that area. When or if it's available, when someone always wants it, I don't know, that's always an issue with parking. But I personally never have trouble finding parking there when I visit that area. That's my personal observation.
Okay. The Felicino is now there, and that's adding more parking, but it's just, there is no parking in that area. But I see, if it's easy enough for you to get in and out, then that's my error, but I don't see this. It just sounded like this incredible amount of surplus parking, and I don't agree with that. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public have any questions? Come on up, sir.
On your 38.
Sorry, I have to swear you in. You gotta do it in this order. Do you swear your testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? Did now state your name and spell your last name?
Y-U-R-I-S-H.
Y-U-R-S. Okay, and your address?
38 Washington Street.
Thank you.
Testimony, I just want to support what that one was thinking. I don't know why anybody would think that this development should rely on public parking. There is no public parking. If any of you have ever been to Red Bank, New Jersey, but there isn't any public parking. So I just came from Mia Lupitas, and there was parking there now, but why wouldn't the developer be responsible for providing public parking for visitors at that building? So that's just the way I feel about it. I'm just supporting the person who just spoke. There's very little parking, and I feel that developers should be responsible for providing parking for their own visitors. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Good to see you.
Can I make a comment? I guess that's your question on this just transient parking that we've just sort of suggested be turned into a green space. Should at some point in the future it be determined that the building needs some transient parking, could they not come back and apply to us
They surely could.
to convert that space so that it could be designed in the manner that it would be contingent space, however one might want to design that, and be there.
I would just suggest that you not rely upon, in my experience, I would not rely upon by a property owner, a condominium association at that, to come in and say, hey, we want to put in and spend and assess the entire community to put in extra spaces and take out green space. I would not suggest you make your decision based upon that. That's just my experience. I represent a lot of condo associations too.
Yeah.
They're not usually open to doing that type of thing. I think the far more intelligent way to go, if that is what the thinking is that you what do they call it? A green block, or what's the space? What's the term?
Grass pavers?
No. What is it?
Green bank.
Green bank, thank you. So that you green bank the spaces, if this is what the board wants to do. And then if their town decides at some point that they need these extra spaces, they can come in and they can add them. And I think that would be the better way to handle it than rather just throwing it at the applicant and saying, or the association saying, hey, leave it up to them to come in and ask.
Did we not do that on the applicant over in the former Hampton Inn site?
We did Wilson.
Yes.
That's exactly what we did, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, but I need to know if that's what the board wants to do and whether the applicant's okay with that.
Keep in mind as I'm reading this, the parking requirement for the building, which includes the retail, food service and commercial, is 33 spaces.
Right.
So what we've just discussed by making that green space is if the management of the building decides to restrict access to the parking to just residents, then there isn't any retail parking. So that's what we need to consider if we want to bank it or we want to put it back to the way the plan has been submitted. So there is a place for someone who's using the commercial space or the coffee shop to park on site. But
So I think we need to change the narrative that parking is not a given right. Just because you want to park in front of the coffee shop doesn't mean that you're automatically gonna get that space. And so do we want this new development right across from a train station? And I know New Jersey Transit Service is not the best at times, but we'll get there. But like, do we want to be promoting, hey, everyone gets a space and guess what? Your spouse does too. And then the guest that is, you know, maybe coming to you is gonna be able to drive up there as well. Cause this is supposed to be promoting walking and like biking and access to transit, not, hey, can I get in my car so we can all complain about the traffic in Red Bank? And then quickly park outside of the building that I wanna go to. You know what I mean?
you're 100% right.
So I understand there's the perception of having a parking problem, but there really isn't. If we all have the ability to like walk a block or two, we'll be able to see some excess parking.
I agree with you. I mean, I've lived here for more than 30 years. I used to live in Riverview Towers. There was no guest parking in that building. People who wanted to come and look at the river from my unit had to find a place to park, usually around the corner on Allen Place. And for all of us who live here and ever leave our house to go to anywhere in Red Bank, we always find a parking place. If it's not directly in front of Oriental Empire last night where I was picking up dinner, then I have to walk across English Plaza if I find a space in there. And I think that's a fact of life that you park where you can. So, but this is a decision for the board about how you'd like to handle this. And I guess there's three ways to do it. We green bank these spaces. We leave the plan as it is, or we remove them and make it green space. So Megan, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts on those three options? And if there's an option I'm not thinking of, please, somebody say something.
Well, I'm not really sure what green bank, what's the difference between green banking and, well, I guess the green space they would put.
So green banking, it would be green space, but if the town ever decided that they're lacking in parking, they could force the property owner to put in the spaces because they're on the plan already.
Okay, so I would go with the beautification route, option one, beautification with the island.
Remove this,
green banking, yeah.
remove the spaces from the plan, have no green banking option to add them back later, but to beautify the space.
Yes.
We'll call that option one. Lou?
Option one.
Wilson?
Door number two, green banking.
Okay. Itzel?
Option one.
You know?
Option one.
Barbara?
I like option one, but I have some thoughts about not having enough parking spaces, but I walk all over Red Bank, and so I guess everybody else can too.
I would vote for option.
Option one, karmic, make good for the tree that's coming down, the oldest oak tree on Oakland.
Yeah, that's what we would like. Beautify it. Okay, what's next?
Thank you, very much. Anyone has any other questions?
Last chance for the public to ask any questions of the engineer. Thank you very much, and I apologize for not remembering that you were here previously.
Next witness is Frank Petrovich. He's going to be speaking about traffic, and I'm very, loud and clear, Mr. Chairman, your suggestion that we keep it very brief.
Yeah, I would note, Mr. McKenna, this is it's an approved use, so traffic is not as important to this type of application, but.
If you want to skip over his testimony, you'll let him plan.
It's up to you. It's your application. If you don't want anything on the record from the traffic engineer, I'm not going to twist your arm to do it after hearing what our attorney has to say about it. And as I've said before, I've never in my life heard a traffic engineer testify against their own application. Never once have they ever said, yeah, this is a problem.
Right, we do have the traffic, we have his traffic report in the record and we can rely upon that.
It's a detailed report.
Yes.
Quite frankly, what he was going to talk about before, so, if you don't mind, I'd like to call Christine the phone, just. Provide on the plan.
Do you swear any testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
And just state your name for spelling your last name for the record.
C with a CHRIS, Chani, the phone is COFONE. Testifying as a licensed professional planner. I've been testifying except for about 28 years in the state of New Jersey. I've been qualified mostly in Red Bank for the zoning board of adjustment, but certainly before the planning board for a time or two. My offices are currently located at 125 Half Mile Road, Suite 200, but I'm excited to say I'm closing about 2 weeks on 52 Reckless Place. So I will finally have a legitimate Red Bank presence. Excited about that. That's happening for us at PCG. And my licenses are currently valid.
Thank you and welcome.
Thank you. This is a substantially conforming application. I apologize for whispering to Mr. McKenna that we need variances at the beginning of my video. We need only one variance. That was me who confused him, so I apologize for that, Mr. Lexstein. It is only one variance that really, the others are designed and identified by Jack.
Christine, can you pull the microphone closer, please?
Sure. So the only variance that we're seeking is from this train station overlay setback requirement to a public right of way of 5 feet, where we're proposing 1 foot along Ridge Avenue. You heard testimony describing the building from both Mr. Monroe as well as Ms. Floor, that's really the second story where we come all the way out, and our bottom floor will be an open common area. So it's certainly not going to have any substantial detriment or negative impacts. I think this is a substantially conforming application. When you look at the stated purpose of the train station district, it reads, the purpose of the train station district is to encourage a mix of retail, commercial uses at the street level with increased residential density on floors above street level to create a mixed residential and commercial neighborhood that relies predominantly on public transportation as the primary means of travel, and general applications under the overlay standards are intended to, and it goes on to list a bunch of things that they're intended to, what this application does, not the least of which is to create affordable housing opportunities. So I think we are substantially compliant with the DOT zone. Statutorily, I think the board could look at both the C1 and C2 criteria here. The existing conditions on the property also maintain a non-conforming setback, and as you also heard, the goal of the applicant was to sort of be in line with existing conditions in the area. We did try to be more sensitive along Oakland. The building is certainly conforming there, which is, I would say, Oakland is much more residential in character, of course, than Bridge. So I do think the board can grant under the C1 in the absence of any C1 hardship criteria, under the C2 statutory criteria, advancing purpose E of the land use law, which talks about establishing appropriate population densities. The population density is certainly appropriate for the building here, and we need the parking requirements, which I know is important to our community here in Red Bank, but also criteria G, which talks about sufficient space and appropriate locations for a variety of uses, and certainly criteria I, a desirable visual environment through creative development techniques and good civic design. I think that this is an excellent example of good civic design. Mr. Monroe and our team have tried to take into account the context sensitive design of this, representation to a train station, but also residential homes and businesses. So there's a lot that has to go into the planning of that to make sure that you are, of course, taking advantage of the transportation rate. We've heard that this is potentially going to be a transit village, as you know, from transit oriented development, and smart growth. Those desires are to create a business or play without a car. Maxie can give you better color on that than I probably can, but that's my understanding of transit oriented development and what we want to accomplish as planners, right? We want to be able to at least minimize reliance on a car. So statutorily, we certainly meet our burden of proof under, in my opinion, both C1 and C2 criteria. The test for this or any other applicant is not that there be no detriment, just the benefits of the grant of the variance would outweigh any detriment. Here, I see no detriment. We are, creating great curb appeal. The massing of the structure is such that the setback will not have any detrimental impact because it is open on the ground level. And we are absolutely in conformance with the stated purpose of the train station overlay zone, as well as the master plan to increase density in this area. So I think we are burden of proof and the sought and can be granted with no substantial detriment of time.
Any questions?
Does anyone from the board have any questions for Ms. Cofone?
I have one question.
Shoot.
The setback on the front is 1 foot from the front of the piers of the portico, right?
Correct.
Right. What's the distance from there to the building line proper?
Sorry, about 8 feet.
Mr. Monroe, this is about 8 feet.
About 8 feet.
So the main portion of your building will be approximately 8 feet further back from the existing building where Mia Lupitas is now,
Correct.
essentially, correct? All right, thank you. Anyone else on the board have any questions?
This is more of an architectural question, but how wide are those piers? And what, just out of curiosity, and what's the distance of that walkway?
Yeah, we actually made them wider in the 3D model, the plan to show the shower. The 3D model, we like a little more square. So we also added some planters there, so there's room to pass by there. At the narrowest, it's about 5 feet, and it goes out to 8 or 9 feet at the edge. So we also have piers on the building, but there's places to sit, still walk by. There's ample space there.
More basic question, why do you have that at all?
What
Piers, I mean, it's a big interference with people walking through. Couldn't it be cantilevered or something like that?
Well, yeah, it actually defines a space. I think a lot of urban planning creates a space, and also the building line is set back. It's only the roof above that comes out. That's a green roof area. I think it has more character with the columns because it defines that space. We can cantilever it out, but I kind of like the feeling of it. It feels more like something you'd see like in Barcelona or something like that, or some old city where it actually columns kind of define the space. They're far enough apart that I can meander around them. So,
But if a couple of people are walking down there, they're not gonna be comfortable walking through it, right? Because it's too narrow
I also
for them
think
to
it's
walk side by side.
if people are sitting in there, they also want to feel protected. So I think people would be able to walk past that. I agree with Mr. Monroe. I think it creates a nicer, more inviting space that has some defined parameters to it.
And there will be a sidewalk between that and the street.
10 feet. 10 feet.
Yeah, so there's a sidewalk beyond that up to the curb. It's not covered by anything that's in the public right of way. So people don't have to walk under this colonnade to traverse the site. They can easily do it on the sidewalk.
How wide is that?
10 feet.
10 feet from
10
the,
feet from the front of the pier to the curb.
okay.
But I agree with you. If I can make it a little bit wider, which I will. We made the columns bigger. I'll add a little more space to it. We haven't done the working drawings of the building yet. I think it's a good comment, and we'll look to widen that up a little bit. But I do think you'll appreciate the piers there. I think.
So you can make the pier.
The piers the same size, and I'll push the building back a little bit. We have a little more space,
Okay.
so it's better all around.
Thank you. Does anyone from the public have any questions for the planner? Okay. Thank you.
That's our application.
Does anyone from the public have any comments? This is the comment phase of life. Do you have any comments regarding the application you'd like to share with the board? Mr. Yurish, come on up.
And Mr. Yurish, you're already under.
Yes.
Yes, please.
Is this the proper forum to ask about? What I read was possible tax abatements, other incentives.
I can answer that. No, it's not. Because this board doesn't have any control over that. That would be a council question.
Thank you.
No problem.
Does anyone else from the public have any comments on the application they'd like to make? Seeing none, I make a motion to close the public portion of the hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any abstain? Okay. You want to sum up with anything, Mr. McKenna?
Yes, I would. First of all, I'd like to thank the board for time and frankly, if you don't mind saying this. I'd love to work proactive. I can't, I'm so sorry. I think it's important to have that dialogue. You listen to people, suggestions and ideas. All too often you come before a board and nobody has any comment. So refreshing to listen to comments. And I think in this instance, see a real sense of compromise. And I mean that in the positive sense. Everybody's working together to get to where we ended up here at the end of the day. So with that hope, I would ask that the board approve the application as it stands now. And again, I want to thank you for your cooperation and consideration of the application. I think it's going to be a great plus to that area. I went to Open Street School when I was in kindergarten 1,000 years ago. Reminisce on Open Street and over. I think it would be a real shot in the arm to that area. And I think we'll also encourage the redevelopment of the area between there and Anderson Brothers property. So I think it will all have a very positive long-term effect on not just the property itself, but on the area.
That being said, does anyone want to make a motion?
I move we approve.
Turn on your mic, please, and
I move we approve.
Lou's making a motion to approve the application as discussed. Is there a second?
I'll second. Second.
Mark Fitzgerald,
Yes.
Christina Bonatakis,
Yes.
Dan Mancuso.
As someone who spent a great deal of time growing up on this block as a kid, my grandfather had his plumbing store there. I had relatives on Oakland, I think in one of the houses that's coming down, and grandparents on Shrewsbury Avenue. I vote yes.
Lou Demento,
Yes.
Robert Boas,
Yes.
Leah Massey,
Yes.
Wilson Bibi,
Yes.
Vincent Hernandez.
Yes.
And Brian Flanagan.
Yes. And let the record show, I voted yes, despite my daughter's insistence that nothing take Mia Lupitas away from her. Will be my first phone call when I get in the car.
Oh, my God.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you all.
Good to see
We don't
you.
have anything else?
Thank
Motion to adjourn?
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you again, everyone. Paper.
I'm here sooner than I expected.
I know. Well, that's still gonna, that's
Yes.
November 11th, right?